I have a heartache hidden in my heart. I met the woman named L-year-old with the story too about the suspicion of mistaken children. But the woman can't recognize me because it has passed 18 years. Period 1. I have a heartache hidden in my heart. I held the first son to leave the district hospital home with a heavy investment. My wife and I have done every possible way to exclude the wrong child, but the mood still matters to the king. Then the joy for the first time was mother and overwhelmed my mind. My husband was so happy that I gave birth to my first son to the whole family who should be able to marry his wife and baby. Every time I have a little ripple about the story in the living room, the husband will be ripped off. You told me, I see, I'm just mistaken where you are anymore. Each time I heard my husband say that I was watching you, and carefully watching every detail, I just had the same focus as me and my husband. The two sides also claimed that there was no confusion because the boy was like the other guy's husband. Their friends come to visit, I'm glad you're going to look like this guy. Gradually everything went into oblivion and I no longer had little ripple disturbed. When the son of Fook Duke was 5 years old, I was born a second baby. Daughter. This time during pregnancy, I am an ultrasound daughter when laying out the true daughter, not going anywhere. My husband is extremely satisfied. My family dresses warm and peace like other family cover. My children are as big as they are and obedient to their parents. Especially my very own son, my mother, and his maternal grandparents. I also learned well and good, knowing to help parents with home, I live very well. 2 years ago, he entered the University of Hanoi Polytechnic. Before the admission, I had a right to hospital appendix. At the digestive department of the district hospital where I was born in the old days of Fook Duke, I had an incredibly irony encounter leaving me to know how to stop and suffer. I met the woman named L-year-old with the story too about the suspicion of mistaken children. But the woman can't recognize me because it has passed 18 years. Seeing her again is an extreme fatigue of physical and spiritual violence. In fact, I was brought up by the gracious man to finally get me to have this ironically encounter. The number is that when I do the hospitalization for my son of an appendectomy, sitting on a pending row to a name call, there are some people sitting next to me and the girl sitting on the side asking, "These are my mothers." That's like 2 water droplets. I was surprised to turn to the little girl sitting next door. 1 minute of stunned running straight from the heart rocketed to the brain when I first saw the baby's face. I'm like me too. The natural curly hair is pressed to the forehead, big eyes, and the pinch of the left cheek. I stunned a few seconds and then confused to answer the people sitting next door. No, the 2 grandchildren first met. It's not my mother. What's your name? Where is the house? A patient next door exclaims, "Heavens and earth, why do not they are not goods but have people alike like 2 drops of water? If you don't ask your mother." The little girl sitting next to me is equally surprised. Holding my mother's case file, she smiled, "It's clear to me. My parents don't look like the other. Because I'm not like my father and dad, you're not happy, and I'm all around. My dad addicted to alcohol and sneezing, my mom is for you too. My childhood mother was a daughter, so he was very good, but the size of the child looks more and more unlike anyone in the house, so he has to turn to the motherhood, miserable. So my mother did not know how many times hug you mourn. The little girl named his own suffering with everyone around them as if they were her longtime relatives. When it comes to the hospital, the scene takes the person to go to the hospital, or the patient also causes people to erase the unfamiliar distance. The sickness of the disease causes people to chain back, closer together, ready to share the circumstances, and the suffering together to soothe the spirits. Mother of Duyen name L has been preparing colon cancer procedures for surgery. I'm quiet when I hear the family conversation. Memories of old year in the birth room again, the liver eye tincture scratch like fire. I was horribly concerned, half wanted to ask the phone number of Duyen to later have time to learn the industry. But the sensitive heart of a mother who is afraid to lose children, afraid of children causes me to be frightened. That day I was silent, listening to the family with patience. I did not ask the phone number of Charm. I was almost running away from me. I'm really afraid of fear, but I don't know what to fear. My mind brings chaos. I let the little girl look like I like to cast in the hospital lounge and flee yourself. But it looks like the heavens caught me having to meet again by the Mother of God as a grim challenge of fate. Because after my son's operation the next day, Phuc Duc and Mrs. L. Duyen's mother was pushed back to the post-operative room for almost 1 day and was eventually transferred to the digestive clinic. Over the course of a week we have a reunion on bed. My tears fell backwards into the heart, in the very misery, and the day ended when witnessing the story of my mother's life. As much as what she cares about, I envisioned that the mother of Duyen after was born as the daughter of the only big girl, who was no more than anyone, had been spoiled by her family with the mother of Grace Lang Din, pregnant, laying out of Charm is not his father. My neighbor, your friends laugh at your back, you're so sorry. How much of a condenser poured on her head and later was the Charm. The unjustly battles after the drunk pushed the coast away from him. He did not abandon his wife but regarded his wife as a place to pour his revenge. Detecting mom with cancer but dad does not care about the day tea alcohol is not out of him, ma not out ma. The 3 sons loving their mother, but all had their own family, occasionally visiting mom for a little money and rushed back. The brothers of Grace all learn level 3, to be a worker in the commune. Life is difficult, awareness is low. At the end of the 2nd level, I don't go to school, and I have to quit school to send money to raising mothers. I alone look after the mother, with the mother in the sad days of grief pain when mother is seriously ill. Some day she entered the surgery, I also found myself in the charm of mother care. The day I brought the son Phuc Duc to institute, the charm seemed sad. It fascinated both my children. In 1 week of treatment here, Phuc Duc also talked to her. My son advised him to try to study in the evening, to finish the graduation level 3 and then test in the intermediate occupation of the profession I like to later open the shop. Phuc Duc is a good faith boy, listening to his family's circumstances. My son is very sympathetic and loving you. The day I and my son came to the hospital, he stopped telling me, "Oh, yes, I want to ask your opinion, you can give me advice. Are you mistaken for your mother?" Because after this, when his father was dealing badly with his mother cried much for regretting, and told me to hear an old thing. She was born in the hospital, and she also had a baby with her mother on the same day, and she was a son, but when she was born the mid-child told her to be a daughter, eventually welcoming her back to boys. Because she was in childbirth without a close relative, the emergency would take one new afternoon in the chamber, so she feared that the hospital was mistaken for her. Then she kept holding the baby back to her bed and another young woman to ask if anyone was mistaken for her, because it was obvious that the ultrasound was a boy. But when she was laying the daughter, "It's time for me to get a boy, and she's on the wheel." I was afraid she came to steal her children. I look forward to laying a daughter, but someone holding her son to haunt her mother very much. Parents have picked me out early. "Lady, can you go find the woman to ask for the industry? I know where the wrong thing she is, the old man is real." I was quietly interrupted by the hurried minds of the graceful little girl before the hospital gate. The sad words of the brain, and the wet eye, when it comes to this thing of grace, always strangled my heart painfully. I just spoke with the charm of a short sentence, "Your work, so that you should think carefully and you will call me later. You will have the best advice for you." On the occasion of my son's appendix, my husband was on a business trip, so he didn't have a chance to go to the German Institute of Cham, so he didn't know her story. So far 2 years have passed. I have not yet once opened the phone call to Diane to say my advice to her, as I promised at the hospital farewell. I've been in crisis and fear for the last 2 years. I do not share with her husband, the more I do not share with Duke. I alone have a paddle against tears of courage. And I became a man of promise, lies, and cowardly before myself. The last 2 years I live in tormented shoes and completely deadlock. I do not know what to do with the irony situation of fate. I love my son's gospel more than everything in my life. Thinking of far away from me, or making me sad, my heart broke. Duke grew up with my milk line. I take care of my son from the egg. Now if the right gospel is not my son, my heart dies always with this terrible truth. I was blessed by the default my son, who is now confused, that I may have feelings of sticking to one of my other children who I have never been in my foster intimacy, or clarifying the truth just to bring more tragedy. Although now, in today's era, to find out the truth by considering DNA farming is the most obvious and quickest. But although just one step is finding the truth, I swear to never look for this truth. The proof: I've fled for 2 years now since I met my mother in the coast.